The sun had barely risen over the crimson horizon of the planet Virelia, yet the battlefield was already alive with noise. Explosions echoed in the distance, and the air shimmered with heat from the laser blasts. Soldiers in human armor moved carefully through the dust and debris, their weapons ready, hearts pounding with tension. Among them was the youngest warrior, only 19, but brave in ways most adults could not imagine. His name was Arlen. He was small compared to the other soldiers, with lean muscles and bright eyes that always seemed to shine with curiosity. Even in the heat of war, Arlen had been trained quickly, drafted into the Interstellar Alliance's army, when humans were asked to aid in the defense of this distant world. Most of the older soldiers doubted him. He was impulsive, sometimes reckless, and too small to survive the dangerous battlefield. But today, something inside him felt different. There was a strange energy in the air, a sense that something huge and unexpected was about to happen. The alien forces of the Empire they were fighting against had always been precise and merciless. Their soldiers moved like machines, their weapons cutting through the air with deadly accuracy. Humans had always relied on teamwork and unpredictability. But today the humans were stretched thin. Arlen's squad had been ordered to hold a ridge overlooking a valley, where the aliens' advanced cannons were positioned. "Keep your heads down," shouted Captain Vorn, a tall, grizzled veteran with scars across his face. "They won't wait for us to think. If we fire too soon, we lose." Arlen crouched behind a shattered wall, his pulse quickening. He glanced at his squad mates. Most of them were tense, eyes darting nervously between the horizon and their weapons. Arlen, however, felt a strange calm. It was as if something beyond the battle was watching, guiding him. He didn't understand it yet, but he could feel it deep in his bones. Suddenly, a flash of light cut through the battlefield. A figure descended from the sky, moving gracefully, almost like a dancer. Her armor gleamed with a soft metallic sheen, and her long hair flowed behind her, shimmering with colors that seemed impossible to describe. Soldiers froze as she landed in the middle of the battlefield, untouched by the chaos around her. It was the alien princess. She moved with a regal, commanding presence, her eyes scanning the human lines with an intensity that made even the most experienced soldiers shiver. Her gaze fell on the human warriors, sharp and calculating, like she could see straight into their hearts. For a moment, the battlefield seemed to hold its breath. And then, she pointed, not at the strongest, not at the oldest, but directly at Arlen, the youngest, smallest, least experienced human warrior on the field. "He will be mine," she proclaimed, her voice ringing across the valley. It was calm but powerful, echoing in a way that made the ground tremble slightly. Every soldier in the human line froze. "What does that mean?" whispered one of Arlen's squad mates, eyes wide. I don't know," Arlen stammered, feeling heat rise to his cheeks. His heart raced, not with fear but with a strange thrill. Something about the princess's words felt like a challenge, like a puzzle he had to solve. The captain shouted, trying to regain control. "Hold your positions. Do not engage the princess directly. Focus on the aliens!" But even as he spoke, the princess's presence seemed to warp reality. The alien forces hesitated, as if unsure what to do, their precise formations breaking for the first time in years. Arlen felt a pull inside him, a strange mix of fear and courage. He wanted to run, to hide, to stay safe, but he couldn't. His feet moved on their own, carrying him a few steps forward, closer to the princess. His squad mates grabbed him, shouting, but he gently pushed them away. I have to see," he said, his voice firm despite the fear. The princess's eyes met his, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. She didn't smile, but there was a hint of curiosity there, a spark that made Arlen's chest pound. He felt as if she could see every thought he had, every fear, every hope. And yet there was no threat in her gaze, only a test. Suddenly, the aliens nearest the princess began to retreat. It was not out of fear of the humans, though the humans were brave, but because the princess had commanded them with a silent authority, a power that made soldiers obey without question. She began to walk toward Arlen, each step measured, deliberate, her presence bending the chaos around her. Captain Vorn growled and tried to pull Arlen back. "Stay down, boy. You don't know what you're doing." But Arlen stood his ground. Something told him that this encounter was not a normal battle. It was something bigger, something that might change everything. The princess stopped a few meters away. She looked Arlen up and down, her eyes narrow and thoughtful. Then, in a voice soft enough for only him to hear, she said, You are different from the others. Clever, brave, and interesting. Arlen swallowed hard. I don't understand. Why me? The princess tilted her head slightly, considering. Because you are human, she said simply. And humans are unpredictable. You may not realize it yet, but your kind is capable of things beyond imagination. I want to see what you can do. Before he could respond, a sudden explosion rocked the battlefield, throwing dirt and smoke into the air. Arlen's squad was forced to scatter, firing at the advancing aliens. But in his mind, he couldn't stop thinking about the princess's words. He will be mine. What did she mean? Did she want to capture him? Train him? Or was it something else entirely? As the humans regrouped on the ridge, Arlen sat apart from the others, staring at the sky where the princess had hovered. His mind raced with questions and possibilities. For the first time, he felt that being small and underestimated might actually be an advantage. Humans were clever, adaptable, and bold in ways that aliens could not predict. Maybe, just maybe, he could rise to this unexpected challenge. That night the camp was quiet, but Arlen could not sleep. He kept imagining the princess's eyes, the power behind her voice, and the way she had singled him out. His comrades tried to joke and lighten the mood, but he could not shake the feeling that his life had changed forever. Something incredible was waiting for him, and it was tied to that single, unforgettable proclamation. By morning, the humans were preparing for another assault, but Arlen knew that no matter how many battles they fought or how many aliens they defeated, his mind would always return to the princess. Who was she? What did she want with him? And most importantly, what did it mean to be hers? The youngest human warrior, once underestimated and overlooked, now carried a burden heavier than any weapon. And yet, for the first time, he felt alive in a way he never had before. His courage was no longer just a duty, it was a destiny. The morning sun rose over the scorched battlefield of Virelia, casting long shadows across the craters and twisted metal. Smoke still drifted from the ruined alien cannons, and the faint hum of distant warships reminded the human soldiers that the battle was far from over. Yet for Arlen, the youngest human warrior, the fight on the ridge had lost its urgency. His thoughts were consumed by the alien princess's words, "He will be mine." The phrase echoed in his mind, refusing to fade. He didn't understand what it meant, but he felt a pull, like a thread connecting him to something much larger than himself. Even the seasoned veterans around him noticed his distraction. Captain Vorn, normally impatient with Arlen's impulsiveness, frowned as he watched the boy stare at the horizon. "Focus, Arlen," the captain barked. "We've got another wave coming in. Don't let your mind wander. I can't explain." Arlen muttered almost to himself. "There's something I need to do." Vorn repeated sharply. "We're at war. What you need to do is survive." But Arlen knew it wasn't just survival. That proclamation from the princess had stirred something deep inside him. He didn't know if it was danger or opportunity or both, but he felt he had no choice but to follow it. And so, when the humans were ordered to retreat to a safer position, Arlen didn't follow the main group. He slipped quietly through the dust, moving toward the valley where the princess had appeared. The terrain was rough, scattered with debris and jagged rocks. The air smelled of burnt metal and ozone. Arlen's heart pounded in his chest, but his mind was strangely calm. Step by step he moved closer to the alien stronghold, guided not by logic but by an instinct he didn't fully understand. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, and Arlen finally reached a ridge overlooking the alien city. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering spires of smooth, shining metal rose from the ground, reflecting the sunlight in a dazzling display. Vehicles hovered silently through the streets, and soldiers moved with perfect precision, their uniforms gleaming in the light. And there she was, the princess. She stood atop a balcony of one of the tallest towers, looking down at the approaching humans. Her hair caught the sun, shimmering like liquid gold, and her eyes scanned the horizon with a sharp intelligence that made Arlen's stomach twist. When she saw him, her gaze locked onto his with unyielding focus. He felt it like a weight, pressing on his chest and yet compelling him forward. Without thinking, he stepped out of the shadows and called out, I'm here," he said, voice steady despite the fear curling in his stomach. The princess's lips curved slightly. "I wondered how long it would take you," she said, her voice carrying clearly even across the distance. You are curious human, courageous, perhaps even foolish. Arlen swallowed. Why me? Why did you say I would be yours? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she waved her hand and a shimmering barrier of light appeared around him. He tried to step back, but the field held him in place, tight but not painful. Curiosity will bring you further than fear, she said finally. I did not choose you lightly. You are human, and humans are unpredictable. That is why I want to see what you can do. Before Arlen could respond, a squad of alien guards descended from the tower. They were massive compared to humans with sleek armor and sharp weapons. Their movements were silent and precise, but the princess raised a hand and they froze in place, bowing slightly to her authority. You will come with me, she said to Arlen. Not as a prisoner, as a guest. But make no mistake, this is a test. Arlen hesitated, glancing back at the distant ridge where his comrades might still be. They would think he had abandoned them, or worse, been captured. But something inside him whispered that this was no ordinary capture. He nodded. I will come. The princess smiled faintly and gestured, and the barrier lifted. She turned, walking toward a hovering platform that would carry them into the city. Arlen followed, every step sending a mixture of fear and excitement coursing through him. He had never imagined he would willingly follow an alien into their own stronghold. Yet here he was, drawn by something beyond understanding. Inside the alien palace, the scale and grandeur were overwhelming. The walls shimmered with materials that seemed alive, pulsing faintly with light. Rooms stretched into heights that made Arlen's neck ache from looking up, and corridors twisted in ways that defied normal architecture. Advanced machines moved silently along the floors, performing tasks without the need for hands. Every detail screamed power, sophistication, and control. The princess led him through this labyrinth with ease, her presence commanding silence from all who saw her. Soldiers and servants bowed as she passed, yet she paid them little attention. All her focus was on him, as if she could see the potential he carried within. Finally, they reached a large chamber with a high ceiling and walls of translucent crystal. Here, she said, you will stay for now. Observe, learn, survive. Tomorrow your first trial begins. Arlen looked around. Trial? Yes, the princess said, walking slowly in front of him. You are not here by accident. There is a threat approaching, a rogue faction within our empire. They plan to destroy planets, including yours. We need someone unpredictable, someone capable of thinking beyond logic. That someone is you. Arlen felt a chill. He was only a soldier, trained for battle but never for diplomacy or strategy at this scale. Me? Why would I be capable of that? Because you are human, she said simply. Your kind surprises me. You see possibilities we do not. You adapt where we calculate. You act where we hesitate. That is why I chose you. He tried to argue, but she silenced him with a gesture. Do not waste words. You will see for yourself, and do not think this is easy. Many have tried and failed. But if you succeed, if you truly prove your worth, you will change the fate of countless lives across the galaxy. Arlen sat quietly, absorbing the enormity of her words. He was frightened, yes, but also strangely exhilarated. For the first time, he felt the weight of destiny pressing on his shoulders, and he was ready to carry it, however daunting it might be. That night, he could not sleep. The chamber was silent, but his mind raced. He replayed the princess's words, her calm but commanding voice, the strange pull he had felt toward her and the alien city. Questions swirled. Could he really make a difference? Could a human really change the fate of an empire? As the alien sun set outside, casting long shadows across the crystalline walls, the princess appeared at the chamber entrance. She observed him quietly for a moment. Rest well, she said softly. Tomorrow your first challenge begins. And remember, I am watching. Always. Arlen lay down, staring at the ceiling, feeling the strange mixture of fear and excitement settle into his chest. The princess's proclamation echoed again in his mind. He will be mine. He didn't know if it meant friendship, mentorship, or something else entirely, but he knew one thing. His life had changed forever. By morning, the city was alive with activity, and Arlen knew he had to face whatever trials awaited him. He was no longer just the youngest human warrior on the battlefield. He was someone chosen by a being more powerful than he could understand. And somehow he had to prove that humans, small, fragile, and unpredictable, could rise to a challenge that might shape the fate of worlds. The dawn light seeped through the crystalline walls of the palace, casting rainbow patterns across the floor. Arlen sat on the edge of a polished platform, staring at the alien city below. He could hear the soft hum of machinery, the distant clatter of patrols, and the faint voices of those who worked in the palace. Everything felt strange and magnificent, yet overwhelming. He was far from the battlefield of Virelia, yet the weight of responsibility pressed heavier on his young shoulders than any enemy he had faced. The princess appeared silently at the doorway, her presence commanding attention even in the bustling palace. She wore a gown of shimmering metal threads that reflected the morning light, making her seem almost unreal. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, fixed on him with an intensity that made his heart race. "It is time," she said softly. "Your first trial begins now." Arlen rose, trying to steady his nerves. "A trial? What kind of trial?" She gave a small, enigmatic smile. "Not just any trial. You will be tested in 3 ways: intellect, courage, and empathy. If you succeed, you may prove that humans can survive where aliens cannot. If you fail, you will learn that unpredictability has consequences." Arlen swallowed. I'll do my best." The princess gestured, and the walls of the chamber dissolved into a glowing portal of light. Arlen hesitated, but a gentle push from her hand sent him forward. The sensation was strange, like floating through air, weightless and disoriented. When he stepped out on the other side, he found himself in a vast arena that stretched farther than his eyes could see. The arena was unlike anything he had seen. Towers of polished metal rose from the ground, connected by glowing bridges. Pools of liquid shimmered with colors that seemed alive, and standing at the far end, waiting silently, were several figures, other humans, some soldiers, some civilians, but none of them looked like they belonged here. A voice boomed across the arena. "Your challenge is simple. Survive the trials and prove the worth of your kind. Fail and remain trapped forever." Arlen's heart pounded. He looked at the other humans, but they all looked as confused and frightened as he felt. He realized quickly that this was not a physical challenge alone. These trials were as much about his mind and spirit as they were about his body. The first trial was a puzzle. A floating cube hovered in the center of the arena, covered with shifting symbols that glowed faintly. Arlen stepped closer, examining the intricate patterns. He had never seen symbols like these before. His mind raced, trying to detect patterns, logic, anything familiar. Hours seemed to pass. Sweat ran down his brow as he twisted and turned the cube, aligning symbols and solving small sequences one step at a time. Other humans struggled beside him, some panicking, some giving up. But Arlen's determination grew with each small victory. He could feel the presence of the princess somewhere above, observing him, her eyes sharp and calculating. Finally, with a satisfying click, the cube opened, revealing a glowing orb. Arlen touched it and a wave of light washed over him. The puzzle was solved. A door opened, leading him to the second trial. Courage. This trial was physical and terrifying. The arena transformed around him into a dark forest, filled with strange creatures that hissed and lunged from the shadows. The ground was uneven, roots twisting like snakes, and the air was thick with a fog that made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Arlen gripped his weapon tightly, heart racing, but he forced himself to move forward. Each step tested his courage. Strange creatures leapt from the shadows, yet he found ways to evade them or fend them off. His mind and reflexes worked together, using the lessons he had learned on the battlefield to survive. Hours passed. Exhaustion weighed heavily on him, yet he pressed on. At the center of the forest stood a massive creature, far larger and more fearsome than any he had faced. Its eyes glowed red, and it let out a deafening roar that shook the trees. Arlen froze for a moment, but then he remembered the princess's words. Humans are unpredictable. Instead of attacking head-on, he observed the creature carefully, noticing its patterns and movements. Using agility, timing, and quick thinking, he managed to bypass it, striking when necessary and retreating when needed. When he finally emerged from the forest victorious, he felt a thrill unlike anything he had experienced, a combination of relief, pride, and confidence. But there was one final trial: empathy. The arena transformed once more, this time into a simulation of a war-torn city. Fires burned, buildings collapsed, and cries of pain echoed through the streets. Innocent civilians, both human and alien, were trapped in the chaos. Arlen's task was not to fight, but to save as many as possible using strategy, quick thinking, and compassion. Arlen moved through the city carefully, assessing situations and making decisions that saved lives. He guided civilians to safe zones, deflected collapsing debris, and negotiated with panicked soldiers who had lost control. Every choice mattered. A wrong step could cost lives. Hours passed, yet he did not falter. He learned quickly that empathy was not just feeling for others. It was understanding their needs, predicting their actions, and using intellect and courage in service of saving them. By the time the trial ended, he had saved dozens of lives. The simulation dissolved, leaving him standing in the arena once more. The princess stepped forward, her eyes glowing with a mixture of pride and curiosity. "You have completed all 3 trials," she said. "You have proven intelligence, courage, and empathy. You are remarkable." Arlen, exhausted and trembling, sank to the ground. I don't understand." "Why me? Why would you choose a human, a small, inexperienced human, to face these challenges?" The princess crouched slightly, looking at him closely. "Because humans are not predictable. You think in ways we cannot. You act in ways we do not. Your kind survives where we often fail. That is why I chose you, and that is why you have succeeded." She stood and gestured toward the arena doors. "But your journey is far from over. There are those within my empire who fear the rise of a human. You will face challenges far greater than these trials. Political intrigue, betrayal, and danger that tests every part of you. But if you endure, you may become more than just a soldier. You may become a force that changes the fate of worlds." Arlen struggled to his feet, feeling the weight of her words. He had faced alien technology, combat trials, and moral dilemmas, and had survived them all. Yet he sensed the real test was only beginning. The princess's empire was vast, complex, and full of secrets, and not everyone would welcome a human in their midst. As they walked together through the palace, Arlen began to notice subtle signs of scrutiny. Alien officials watched him closely, whispering among themselves. Some glared with hostility, while others seemed curious. Arlen realized that his trials were not over. Survival in this palace required more than strength or intelligence. He needed diplomacy, observation, and patience. The princess finally led him to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. Towers of metal, streams of light, and hovercraft moving silently below. The chaos of war seemed distant from this serene vantage point. "You have done well," she said softly, almost tenderly. "But remember, trials are not just about surviving. They are about proving the worth of your kind. Humans are unpredictable, yes, but your actions carry consequences. Some will fear you, some will challenge you, and some may try to use you for their own purposes." Arlen nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He had passed the physical and mental trials, but the political and social trials had yet to come. He realized that to succeed, he would need not just courage but wisdom, patience, and an unwavering sense of integrity. As the sun set, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, Arlen felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had survived the princess's tests, proven his intelligence, courage, and empathy, and earned her recognition. Yet he knew that the true journey was only beginning, and somewhere in the palace the princess watched him silently, her expression unreadable. She had chosen wisely. The human before her was not just brave, clever, or compassionate. He was capable of greatness beyond imagination. The galaxy was about to witness the power of unpredictability, and she intended to guide it. Arlen stood on the balcony, looking out at the alien city, feeling both small and extraordinary. He had survived impossible trials, faced creatures and simulations meant to break him, and emerged stronger. He did not yet know the full extent of what awaited him, but he was ready. He would learn. He would endure. He would prove that humans, fragile, underestimated, and unpredictable, could rise to any challenge. The palace corridors were vast, filled with a soft hum of alien machinery and distant voices speaking in languages Arlen could barely comprehend. Each step he took echoed on polished floors, a reminder of how alone he truly was in this world of sophistication and power. Yet he felt no fear, not the kind that paralyzed. Instead, he carried a determined calm, a focus sharpened by the trials he had already survived. The princess walked beside him, her presence both comforting and intimidating. Her gaze occasionally flicked toward him, assessing his movements, reactions, and expressions. "You have passed the initial trials," she said softly. "But survival in my empire is not just about strength or cleverness. You will soon learn that politics, loyalty, and perception are weapons as dangerous as any sword or laser." Arlen nodded, trying to absorb the weight of her words. "I understand, but I don't know where to begin. How do I even navigate this empire?" "You observe," the princess replied simply. "You listen. You act when the time is right. And you remember, the unexpected is your greatest weapon. You are human, Arlen. Use that to your advantage." Their first encounter with the Empire's officials was immediate. A council chamber opened before them, filled with alien nobles and generals. Their faces were a mix of curiosity, suspicion, and, in some cases, thinly veiled hostility. Some were tall and angular, others smaller with luminous eyes that seemed to pierce into the soul. All wore intricate robes and armor, symbols of rank and influence that spoke louder than words. "Welcome, human," one of the senior generals said, his voice smooth but edged with contempt. "You have been brought here by the princess herself. Tell us what makes you worthy of our attention." Arlen's heart pounded, but he forced himself to speak clearly. "I don't know if I'm worthy," he admitted honestly, "but I am human. I think differently. I act differently. And I believe that with guidance I can help prevent a disaster that affects both your people and mine." A murmur ran through the chamber. Some aliens whispered nervously, others exchanged skeptical glances. The general raised an eyebrow. "Bold words for a human who has barely survived your first day in our city." Arlen met his gaze steadily. "I have survived more than that, and I will continue to survive. Because if I do not, countless lives, including humans and aliens, will be lost." The princess stepped forward, her voice like a calm wind cutting through the tension. "He is right. There is a rogue faction within our empire. Radicals who will not hesitate to destroy entire planets if their plans succeed. This human may be the key to stopping them." The chamber fell silent. A few officials frowned, clearly uncomfortable at the suggestion that a human, someone they considered small, inexperienced, and unpredictable, could influence the fate of the empire. But others leaned forward, curiosity sparking in their eyes. Over the next several days, Arlen was introduced to the complexities of the empire. He learned about rival nobles scheming for power, generals who mistrusted humans, and scientists working on technology capable of mass destruction. Every day was a new lesson in strategy, negotiation, and subtle observation. Arlen quickly realized that his human unpredictability was both a weapon and a challenge. Aliens were precise, logical, and accustomed to following rules. Humans were not. He could improvise, act emotionally, or take risks that no alien would dare. At first, some officials tried to use his inexperience against him, posing complex problems or traps meant to test his loyalty. But he approached each situation with honesty, insight, and creativity, earning the cautious respect of a few key figures. One afternoon, he was called to the princess's private chamber. She regarded him silently, her expression unreadable. "You have navigated the palace well," she said finally. "But the real test is ahead. The rogue faction grows stronger. They have spies within our council, and soon they will attempt to unleash a weapon that could destroy planets, including your home." Arlen's stomach tightened. "How can we stop them?" "We form an alliance," she replied. "Not all aliens are loyal to the rogue faction. There are those who wish for peace and stability. You will help identify them, gain their trust, and lead a coalition capable of countering the threat." Arlen nodded, determination setting in. I will do whatever it takes." The princess's eyes softened briefly. "Good. But remember, this is more than just a military fight. You will need strategy, courage, and empathy, the same qualities that allowed you to survive my trials. The fate of many worlds rests on your shoulders, human." In the following days, Arlen began meeting with alien officials secretly. He observed carefully, noticing subtle cues in behavior. A nervous glance, a slight hesitation, the way some soldiers deferred to certain nobles. He realized that human intuition, something aliens often lacked, could detect patterns and alliances that raw data could not. Slowly, he started forming an unlikely coalition of aliens willing to work against the rogue faction. At first, it was fragile. Some nobles doubted his loyalty, others openly mocked him. Yet Arlen remained calm, speaking honestly, appealing to shared interests and demonstrating strategic foresight. Slowly, respect replaced suspicion, and trust began to grow. Meanwhile, the rogue faction was not idle. Their attacks became bolder, their spies more dangerous. Arlen learned that the enemy relied heavily on predictable tactics, trusting their technology and rigid hierarchies. This was his advantage. Humans acted in ways they could not anticipate. He devised strategies that used this unpredictability, creating diversions, false leads, and ambushes that disrupted the rogue faction's plans. One night, as Arlen walked through the palace gardens, the princess joined him. The alien sky was lit with distant stars, and the hum of machinery was softened by the gentle rustle of alien flora. "You are doing well," she said. "Your actions have prevented several attacks and gained the trust of many within my empire. But the true challenge is yet to come." "What do you mean?" Arlen asked. "The rogue faction's weapon is almost ready," she said. "It is designed to destroy planets in an instant. If it is unleashed, your homeworld, and countless others, will be gone. We must act quickly, but we must act wisely. You are the key to this plan, human. Your unpredictability is our advantage." Arlen felt a surge of fear and determination. He had survived physical trials, intellectual challenges, and political intrigue, but now the stakes were higher than ever. This was not just about proving himself, it was about saving millions of lives across the galaxy. Over the next few days, Arlen coordinated with his new allies. He trained with alien soldiers, studied the rogue faction's technology, and devised strategies that combined human intuition with alien precision. His plans were risky, relying on quick thinking, improvisation, and trust in his instincts. But so far they had worked. The princess observed quietly, her faith in him growing with each success. "You have proven yourself in ways no one expected," she said one evening. "But the rogue faction is clever. They will try to manipulate, deceive, and challenge you in ways you cannot yet imagine. You must be ready for anything." Arlen nodded. "I will be. I won't fail." She placed a hand on his shoulder, a rare gesture of warmth and reassurance. "I do not doubt that, human. You carry the strength of your kind, courage, intelligence, and unpredictability. Together, we can stop the rogue faction and protect countless lives." As the sun set over the alien city, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Arlen felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. He had formed alliances, gained trust, and devised plans that others would have thought impossible. Yet he knew the final confrontation was near. The rogue faction's weapon was almost ready, and time was running out. Arlen looked at the princess, her eyes reflecting both the city lights and a deep, unwavering determination. He realized that their bond was not just of convenience but of mutual respect and shared purpose. Together, they would face the rogue faction. Together, they would protect worlds. The morning sun rose over the alien city, painting the crystalline towers in gold and silver light. The city was unusually quiet, a tense calm that made Arlen's chest tighten. Today the rogue faction would strike. Their weapon, capable of destroying entire planets, was fully operational. Every life in the galaxy hung in the balance, and the youngest human warrior felt the weight of destiny pressing heavily on him. The princess appeared at the balcony where Arlen had been preparing, her expression calm yet resolute. She had spent countless hours planning with him, coordinating alien allies and predicting the rogue faction's moves. But now it was time. "The final battle begins," she said softly. "Are you ready?" Arlen nodded, gripping his weapon tightly. "I am. We'll stop them." The princess studied him for a moment, then placed a hand on his shoulder, a rare gesture of trust. "Remember, unpredictability is your greatest strength. Use it wisely." Below, the alien streets were alive with troops mobilizing, humans and aliens working side by side. Arlen's coalition was small compared to the rogue faction, but they were united by purpose and guided by ingenuity. The rogue faction relied on brute force, advanced weapons, and rigid strategies, and that would be their undoing. The first sign of the attack came with a distant roar, a wave of rogue faction ships descending on the city, weapons charging and laser beams cutting through the sky. Arlen's heart pounded, but he remembered the lessons of his trials: observation, patience, and courage. He shouted orders to the coalition, deploying traps and diversions designed to exploit the enemy's predictability. The battle began in a blur of motion. Laser fire streaked across the sky. Explosions shook the streets, and soldiers on both sides moved with precision and determination. Arlen led small squads through the city, using stealth and clever tactics to disable rogue faction weapon systems before they could cause mass destruction. Every move relied on improvisation and quick thinking, qualities humans excelled at, and aliens often underestimated. At the center of the chaos, the rogue faction's leader emerged, a towering alien with jagged armor and a weapon that glowed with destructive energy. He laughed as he surveyed the battlefield, confident in his superiority. "You dare challenge me, human?" he sneered, turning his gaze on Arlen. Arlen didn't flinch. "We dare," he shouted, voice steady. He knew a head-on attack would fail. Instead, he relied on strategy and unpredictability. Using the terrain, quick maneuvers, and unexpected attacks from small squads, he distracted the leader while coordinating with the princess to strike at the weapon's core systems. The rogue leader's forces tried to anticipate Arlen's moves, but every time they thought they had him cornered, he acted in a way they could not predict, diverting, retreating, or attacking at unexpected angles. Humans were chaotic, flexible, and resourceful, and that chaos became a weapon against the enemy's rigid planning. Meanwhile, the princess moved through the battlefield with elegance and lethal precision, her powers complementing Arlen's human unpredictability. She disarmed enemies with precise strikes, shielded the coalition from deadly attacks, and guided Arlen's forces in ways only someone of her power could. Together they were unstoppable. Hours passed, the battle raging with relentless intensity. Explosions tore through the city, fires burned, and the air was thick with smoke and tension. Yet through it all, Arlen remained focused. He coordinated attacks, protected civilians, and exploited weaknesses in the rogue faction's defenses. Slowly but surely, their strategy worked. The rogue faction began to falter, their weapons failing one by one, their ranks breaking under the pressure of unpredictability and unity. Finally, the moment came. The rogue leader activated the weapon, a massive energy core glowing ominously in the center of the city. The countdown began, and Arlen knew that if they failed, entire planets, including his home, would be destroyed. "Now!" the princess shouted. Arlen's heart raced as he charged forward, using every skill he had learned: speed, cunning, and intuition. He dodged energy blasts, scaled structures, and outmaneuvered the rogue leader's guards. At the same time, allied aliens disabled the weapon's protective shields, leaving it vulnerable. With a leap and a precise strike, Arlen reached the weapon's core. He used a combination of human improvisation and alien technology to overload the energy systems. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the ground shook violently. The rogue leader roared in fury, realizing his weapon was about to be destroyed. The princess joined Arlen, striking the leader with unmatched skill, forcing him to retreat. Together, human and alien moved as one, combining strategy and raw power. With one final coordinated effort, the weapon imploded safely, sending a controlled energy release into the sky, sparing the planets below. The battlefield fell silent. Smoke drifted, fires burned low, and the survivors stared at the destruction around them. Arlen sank to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. He had done it. Against impossible odds, the youngest human warrior had saved countless lives across the galaxy. The princess approached, her expression a mixture of pride and admiration. "You have done more than survive," she said softly. "You have proven the strength of your kind. Courage, intelligence, empathy, and unpredictability. Humans have all these qualities and more. You have changed the course of the galaxy today." Arlen looked up at her, sweat and dirt streaking his face. "I couldn't have done it alone," he admitted. You guided me, trusted me, and fought alongside me." The princess smiled faintly. And yet you led when it mattered most. That is why I chose you. That is why I said, you would be mine, not in ownership, but in potential. You are human, and your kind is extraordinary. Around them, allies celebrated, tending to the wounded and securing the city. Arlen realized the scope of what had happened. Humans and aliens had fought together, united by strategy, courage, and trust. They had faced an enemy stronger in technology and numbers, yet humans' unique qualities had made the difference. Days later, the coalition gathered in the palace. Alien officials who had once doubted him now nodded in respect. Soldiers who had laughed at the idea of a human leading them now treated him as a comrade and strategist, and through it all the princess watched quietly, her eyes reflecting pride and something deeper, a recognition that humanity, in its unpredictability and courage, had earned its place in the galaxy. Arlen stood beside her on the balcony, overlooking the city that had been saved. He had changed, not just in skill or confidence, but in understanding. He now knew that courage was not just facing enemies, but leading others, making choices that could affect countless lives, and believing in the strength of the unexpected. The princess spoke softly, almost to herself. Humans are remarkable, and he is extraordinary among them. She turned to Arlen, her gaze steady. Your journey is only beginning, human. You have shown the galaxy what your kind can do. But there is more to explore, more to learn, and more to protect. Arlen nodded. I understand. I will not stop. I will keep fighting, keep learning, and keep protecting. She smiled faintly, a rare warmth in her eyes. Good, that is why I chose you. That is why you will continue to grow. Together we will face whatever comes next, and nothing, no enemy, no weapon, no force, will be able to stop the combination of human courage and alien wisdom. As the sun set over the city, painting the towers in gold and purple, Arlen felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had faced impossible challenges, survived trials of intellect, courage, and empathy, navigated alien politics, and defeated a weapon capable of mass destruction. He had proven that humans, despite being underestimated, could excel where others failed. And as the stars began to sparkle in the alien sky, the youngest human warrior understood something profound. This was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers and wonders, and humans had only begun to show what they were capable of. The princess stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. The future is yours, human, she said, and mine will always be linked to yours. Arlen looked out at the horizon, feeling a mixture of pride, awe, and anticipation. He had survived, thrived, and excelled beyond expectation. The galaxy had witnessed the power of humanity, and he was ready for whatever came next. Together, human and princess, they stood as a symbol of unity, courage, and potential, a reminder that even the smallest, youngest, and underestimated beings could shape the destiny of worlds.